Peace and assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another episode, another broadcast of Muslim and Black in America, Black and Muslim in America. This is your host, Bilal Abdullah, back again another week. Hopefully everyone out there had a good Eid. Ramadan's over. Hopefully all our sins have been forgiven. Hopefully our fast has been accepted, God willing. And hopefully we'll live to see another year to come back around again to Ramadan again. It's just been a lot going on. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Since the last post that I put up, about Kenneth Walker charges being dropped, it's just been a lot going on. And what's going on is, as everyone sees, is that all of these protests going on, and it's a beautiful thing, man. And these protests came about because of it's not because of George Floyd, but that's a part of it. That's pretty much the straw that broke the camel's back to cause everyone to be the catalyst to have everyone come out of their homes and come into the streets and protest against racism, white supremacy, police brutality, etc. You have people out there who will say, we're protesting because of George Floyd. We're protesting because of Breonna Taylor. We're protesting because of, all of these other people. And yes, that's a part of it, but we can't let that just be the single reason. That's not the single reason. The single reason is because of the things that I just mentioned: white supremacy, police brutality, and racism. These are the things that are making the people come out in the streets. And as you can see, the whole world is now behind us. But let's, back it up a little bit, because after these protests started coming, and people were out in the streets protesting, you saw that these celebs, as I've been told you all, you saw that these celebs were cooning it up. They were earning their butter biscuits. That's what they were doing. You saw, it's like a whole list of celebrities who are saying little slick things and thinking they're going to get away with it. You had T.I. coming out when they had the protest down there in Atlanta, and people are in the streets tearing up things. It was like 38 plus states, and it's even more now probably, but there were like 38 plus states when this first started, and people were in the streets protesting and burning and rioting and looting. This is anger of the people of what's going on. So you have celebs like T.I. come out when the riots were going on in Atlanta talking about this is Wakanda. What kind of Wakanda bullcrap is that? This isn't a joke. He came out there looking disheveled and looking like he just snorted a line, allegedly. And he's talking about not tearing up the city. Then you had Killer Mike, and I done told y'all about Killer Mike. He came out there crying over the city and telling the people that's not the way we're supposed to do this. You had other celebs as well. It was another chick who came out crying about people burning up the Gucci stores. And then she tried to backtrack and say, well, I wasn't crying about that. Well, then what were you crying about? You had so many celebs coming out saying little slick things, and people were pretty much canceling them. But as I told you all before, you can't trust these celebs. They are slaves to the higher powers within the entertainment industry, which are usually people of the dominant society. So in order for them to get their money, to get their checks to keep coming in from these corporations, from these label owners, from these media companies, they have to say what they want them to say. This is why you can't have celebrities as your leaders. You can't have celebrities speak for you. The streets must speak for you. And the streets have spoken. Now, with this George Floyd whole fiasco, It's just very crazy what went on with that. You had about 3 or 4 officers. I'll call them race soldiers because they're not true police. You had 3 or 4 race soldiers gang up on this man all over a alleged what was it, counterfeit. Some say it was a $10 bill or a $20 bill. And the people at the store, who were Arabs or immigrants, whatever you want to call them, they said, well, it's store policy for us to call the police when somebody gives a counterfeit bill. Whatever. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. And you had the family of George Floyd taking pictures with them, and they're making excuses for them. Okay, maybe not. Maybe y'all some good people, maybe not. But it's just very odd to me that you call these police when you know what's going on. When you know what's going on out here. You know, if you call the police on a black man, that's pretty much an assassination attempt. You mean to tell me that when this man came in the store with this alleged $20 counterfeit bill, that you couldn't just take it from him and tell him, this is fake, and then after he leaves, then call the police or report it to the police, or just throw it away? How is that going to help you? They tried to say that these people that own this store, they were really about helping the community, and they were really great with the people of the community. Then if that's the case, if I own a store and I'm in the black community and I'm a black man, or even if I'm an immigrant and I'm really about the people of my community, I'm really about helping them and not just taking from them, then if somebody came in with a $20 bill that was fake, allegedly, I'm going to say, hey, bro, this is fake. You can't spend this here. How did you get this? Oh, man. Because that's the thing. We don't even know how he got it. So why are you calling the police on him? He could have, you know how people, when they do counterfeiting, they'll go get change from somebody. Like, hey, you got change for 50, you got change for 20. And then you'll give them change. They'll get the real money and they'll give you the fake dollar. So we don't even know where the $20 bill came from. We don't even know if he faked it. And he would have no real reason to really fake it because he had a job. And we'll get back to that job too, but he had a job, so there was no real reason to fake it. He probably just mistakenly had a $20 bill that was fake from somebody that gave it to him. But if you come into my store with a fake $20 bill, I'm going to say, hey, bro, this is fake. You can't use this here. Now, if you come in here again and try that, then you're banned from this store. I'm not going to call the police. I'm not going to do all that unless you try to get rowdy and rambunctious and you try to do all of that. Then maybe the police might be called. But I'm still going to try to handle that. So there was no real need to call the police and all of this. That's what they do. They say, oh, it's store policy and it's out of my hands. It's store policy. You own the store. So it's up to you if you want to call the police or not. That's the same thing they do with these racist laws. Oh, it's out of our hands. It's not the best law, but it's the only law we have, so we have to follow it. Sorry. That's that bull crap. So the police get called on him, and as you're watching the video, he wasn't resisting arrest at all. And the first video we saw were these 3 race soldiers ganging up on him. You had one of them, I think his last name is Shavin. He had his knee on his neck. And then it was another, I think 1 or 2 holding his legs down. And then it was the Asian guy standing guard and making sure nobody runs up or anything. And he's just sitting there with his knee on his neck, they say for like dang near 9 minutes. And the man is telling you that he can't breathe. He's calling for his mother. He's telling you, y'all gonna kill me. And you're still keeping your knee on his neck, and you had a smirk on your face. If you watch the video, you can see a little devilish smirk on his face as he's doing this. So they had no care in the world taking this man's life. And then they tried to lie and say, well, he had pre-existing conditions of high blood pressure and whatever the hell they want to say it was. He had pre-existing conditions, and that's the reason why he died. But then when the autopsy came out, it was revealed that no, it was because you had your knee on his neck and he couldn't get blood flow to the brain or oxygen to the brain, and that's what killed him. Asphyxiation. So we know this was a purposeful type of thing. And then they finally, people started protesting in the streets. They started tearing things up. Why do I care about people tearing up the city? I don't care. Now listen, I'm not glad at them, but I'm not mad at them. That's the only way you're going to see a change. That's the only way you can show that no, you done really messed up. We are angry at you and you're going to do something about it. And it seemed like they were allowing this. They were like, oh, we just going to let these Negroes blow off steam and then they'll get back to, being calm and letting us go back to killing them. But it didn't stop. The protests just kept on growing and growing and growing, and the riots kept getting bigger, and they were burning down police precincts, doing all of these things. And then you had people saying, so finally they arrested these. They arrested Chauvin, just the one guy at first, and they locked him up and they charged him with, what was it, 3rd-degree murder, which is basically an accident. And the people were like, no, that's not good enough. That's not good enough at all. So the rioting kept on continuing. The protesting kept on continuing. And then another video came out of them having him in the back of the car, punching on him in the back of the police car. I think this was before they took him out and then put the knee on his neck. They had him in the back of the vehicle, just pummeling him with punches for no reason. He didn't resist arrest. So what was that all about? So when people saw that, that made them turn up even more. And so now finally they have arrested the other assailants in this crime, in this murder. And they have upped the charges on Chauvin to 2nd-degree murder, which is cool. But now we need a conviction. And so, the people are still protesting. And what started to happen was we started to see that there were people out there who were being basically agent provocateurs. There were black people looting. Definitely it was. And whether you think it's right or wrong, it is what it is. But there was also white people out there looting, and many of them thought they were agents. There was one video of some white guy breaking out the windows of an AutoZone store. He was wearing all black, had a black mask on, a black little gas mask on, had a black umbrella. And it came out that he was allegedly a police officer on the Minneapolis police force. And they brought up his picture and everything. And the police are saying, oh, that's not really him, but we're not too sure about that. Then you started hearing stories about other provocateurs, and you started hearing stories about white supremacist militia groups infiltrating these type of things. You even had videos where the police were setting up cars to get burned up. You even had videos of bricks already being set out and set in place where the protest was supposed to be held, as if to say, yeah, come take these bricks and start breaking some windows. There was a video about that. A young black man, he said, these bricks weren't here before this protest. I was down here before and these bricks weren't here. And now all of a sudden they're just set up here magically. Who put them down here? There's even videos of police bringing bricks out to the protest areas. So what this starts to look like is provoking riots. And I was watching a Umar Johnson video, and he broke it down pretty decently. He said that the government was pretty much allowing these protests to go on, these riots to go on, this looting to go on, because of these businesses were already losing money because of the coronavirus. So basically, they allowed these things to happen so that these businesses can claim insurance and get their money back up, basically. Or even if they're going out of business, they can get a nice little bag out as they're going out the door. And, I can agree with that as well. Another point that I think that these protests were going on, or these riots were allowed to continue, because he made a great point. He said, you mean to tell me these same police who will kill black people for just sneezing, they're now going to allow you to burn up their precincts? So it doesn't make sense. So another reason that I think this is going on is also is so that they can bring in the military. And you had your boy Trump talking about it, talking about bringing in the military. They already had National Guard out there, but he was talking about bringing in the military to handle the situation. And this had people up in arms, because really that's unconstitutional to do that. You're not supposed to use the army on your own people. You're supposed to use the police to quell whatever drama is going on. So it got so bad that it came to the White House. These riots and protests came to the White House, and they were breaking down fences. It got so bad that your boy Trump had to run down in his bunker and hide out. Allegedly, that's what they say. He was down in his bunker hiding out. So these protests had America shook to the core. That is a powerful thing. And now that you see, this proves to you that peaceful protest doesn't really change much, because the only thing white supremacists respect is destruction, is violence. That just has to be truthfully said. Whether you agree with these things or not, that just has to be truthfully said. You going out into the streets singing Kumbaya, my Lord, holding hands, that's not going to change their minds. Once you start to attack their money, then they're going to start thinking about what they're doing. And as you see, now all of a sudden, all these companies are talking about Black Lives Matter now. Now, they may not even be sincere. They're probably just saying that so they can continue to get black people's money. But notice how things are starting to change now. But recently we heard that Trump said he's going to start pulling back on the National Guard. I think out in D.C., the National Guard started pulling back. So that's a good thing. But my whole thing was, if it got worse, if the military really came in, that could have been some form of coup. Seriously, the military could have came in and just took over the government and said, now we run the show. And, since the military might be full of white supremacists as well, it could have still been the same story going on. Now we just have the military running the show, and they're implementing white supremacy instead of the government or the president or whatever. So that's why I think these type of things were allowed to happen. And what's funny about Trump talking about bringing in the military is that after he was talking about doing that, he had some photo op of him where he was holding up a Bible. And I find it funny how he's not a real deal Christian. He only started saying that when he began to run for the presidency. So he's not no real deal Christian, but they got a picture of him now holding up the Bible after he's talked about bringing in the military. And then it was another article of him talking about going to the shrine of Pope John Paul II and paying his respect after he's talking about bringing in the military. That is nothing but a dog whistle, a loud one. That is him putting out his code that his religion isn't really Christianity. The code he's putting out is that his religion is white supremacy. Because let's not forget how the Catholic Church, they helped in the makings of white supremacy. They helped with the whole slavery of black people. So he's letting you know that this is a white supremacist holy war to him. And this is why you have many in the black media calling what's going on now the anti-black war. What's going on in the streets with, of course, the police brutality and the harming of black people and killing of black people, the anti-blackness being pushed fervently all across America. So this is why you have many in the black people calling it a anti-black war. And even during these protests, we can go back to that again. Even during these protests, you have the police protecting white supremacists. There's many stories. It was one recent story that just came out. Some white guy ran over a black man during the protest and killed him. And they were standing up there during the protest protecting him. He was standing back there smoking a cigarette. And they were standing up there protecting him. You have people, they have stories of people, of police out there who were wearing like white supremacist militia decals on their uniforms. Look at how these police race soldiers were acting towards black people during these protests. We saw the story of the young brother and young sister who were just driving, leaving the protest, not even doing anything illegal, and the cops came, snatched open their doors, tased them, and then snatched them out the car, and then tried to charge them with assaulting officers. And they're in court now fighting that. Hopefully they win that. So we see this anti-black war going on. Even now in Illinois, they said that in Cicero, Illinois, that the Mexicans out there are killing black people. And they have pretty much the blessings of the police. They done teamed up with the police. And they're out there killing black people when they ride through their neighborhoods. This is an anti-black war that's going on. And these protests and the changes that are coming about because of it has these white supremacists scared. So now they have to come out of their shell. They have to proclaim their white supremacy. They have to get everybody on code to continue this anti-black war because there are chinks in the armor. These protests are giving a chink in the armor of white supremacy, and that has them very scared. So I'm just giving you a general overview because I could go into different stories about what's going on during these anti-black war things that are going on. I can go into many different articles, but it's so much going on that we would be here all day just talking about those things. So look these things up yourself. If you're on Twitter, you could just find just story after story after story of these anti-black things going on. And it's good that other people are joining in the protest because that shows that they are in agreement with us. But the thing is, if you truly want to help black people and you're a white person, okay, that's cool, that's great. But if you truly want to help us, then just like those militia white folk with the guns went down to the state capitals and demanded that the coronavirus curfews and lockdowns be lifted, then y'all should be doing the same thing. Y'all should be going down to the state house with guns or without guns and demanding some changes be done about the anti-black war that's going on. It's fine and all good that you're joining us in the streets as well, but you need to be making the change because you have that white privilege to do that. Use your white privilege for good, just like John Brown did. Because you have people at these protests talking about it was some video that came out where he had a crowd of white folk renouncing their white privilege. Like, that's just symbolic stuff. Use your white privilege. You whether you want to renounce it or not, well, what's that mean? You're still going to have it. What does that mean? So since you have it, use it for the good of the people. Use it for justice. Don't just be out here in the streets tearing up things with us. And then that's going to turn around and make black people look bad. Because you're going to be, they're not going to blame you for that. They might arrest a few of you, but it's going to really be turned around on black people. So instead of doing that, go down to the state house and tell them, hey, no, all of this needs to change. But with these with this anti-black war that's going on, with these protests that are going on, I just want all the black people out there to be careful. because, like I said before, there is a chink in the armor of white supremacy being shown, and these white supremacists are scared. You need to, when you're out in public, whether you're out at these protests, whether you're out and about in the streets by yourself, you need to be aware of what's going on around you at all times. If you can get a gun legally, then get that, because that is your Second Amendment right. You need to be prepared for self-defense, because it's not safe out here. That's what I want to say to the black people of America. And there was also reports, it was a report in the Wall Street Journal, that these protests and riots are now moving into the suburbs and what they call the conservative areas. And we know all that means is the white enclaves and the white areas. And to me, this is a good thing, because, we don't want to see innocent people harmed, but, if property becomes damaged in those areas, this will have the dominant society back in the hands of black people. They will, because once these protests are moving out into these conservative areas, they're like, oh my God, we can't even escape it now. Okay, so what do we got to do to make you niggas stop? What do we got to do? They're going to be in black people's hands again, just like they were during the civil rights era. And Dr. Claude Anderson, he was talking about how during the civil rights era, we had it in our hands. We could have demanded anything and they would have gave it to us. And the only thing we demanded was integration. And that's what messed us up. We didn't demand anything else. We just wanted to be around white people and be able to go to the places they went to without, being stopped to do so. It didn't, that was it. That's all we wanted. But no, this time around, because they're waiting for the demands of the black people of America, this time around, our demands are going to be reparations all across the board. Now, you could start with cash payments. That would be good. You could start with that. Or you could start in some other area. But we need to get the ball rolling on reparations. Another thing that black people need to be demanding is that all of these race soldiers need to be put in jail and locked up on charges and need to be put in trial so that we can see what's going to happen. There shouldn't be no, oh, he just got fired because he put a knee on somebody's neck. He just got fired. He going to get rehired. No, we need charges put on these race soldiers. And these protests, we know when there are protests and there are distractions like this going on, the government likes to be slick with things, and there are things going on behind the scenes that we need to be aware of while these protests are going on. One of those things is the Earn It Act. This is some law they're trying to pass to where they can scan all of American social media. Whatever you post online, they can scan it and do what they will with it. Now, they're probably already doing it anyway, but they're trying to put it on paper now so that they can really just be out in the open about it. This is unconstitutional. And as well, this is dangerous because as we see with these protests, the people who were at the protests, all of a sudden, they're getting locked up or they're getting caught up by police and getting beat up and harmed or killed. A lot of times what happens at these protests is they have these scanners that will track your phone and they will say, okay, this is his address. This is where he lives. We'll let him be down here at this protest right now, but when this protest is over, we're going to come see him. We might pull him over on the side of the road one late night and catch him up. We might catch him slipping one day. That's how these things work. And with this Earn It Act, it'll make it even that much more easier. They're going to be scanning all your social media and be like, oh, okay, he has a black empowerment mentality. Let's watch him even more. So this is what's going on. And another thing that's surprising to me is that what happened to the coronavirus? All of these protests been going on. You got people in the streets. They ain't social distancing whatsoever. What happened to the coronavirus? I don't hear nothing about it. that stuff done died down, which proves to me that it wasn't as bad as they were saying it was. Whether it was real or not, there may have been some people who died from it. There may have been people who have got very sick from it. But the fact that all of a sudden after these protests exploded, now the COVID has just disappeared, that's very suspicious. And speaking of the COVID, remember when I said a few broadcasts back, I was talking about the whole coronavirus, and I was saying how the coronavirus was a punishment from Allah, whether it was made in a lab and put out to the world, or whether it happened naturally and it was really transferred from a bat somehow to humans. I said it was a punishment from Allah. And I spoke about how I didn't agree with those people who were saying, don't say it's a punishment. You don't want to say that. And I was saying how they're saying that because if you believe it's a punishment, then you will believe that those being punished, the governments, the rulers, you will believe that those who are being punished have went astray. They have become evildoers. And society, these type of people, they don't want you to think that. They don't want you to see it as white supremacy being punished. And so just recently it came out that over in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia, they have arrested 2 scholars because they claim the coronavirus is a punishment from Allah. One of them was Sheikh Ibrahim and the other was Sheikh Khalid. And this pretty much confirms what I was saying. I didn't even know that they were arrested until recently, and I've been saying that this is a punishment from Allah. So my words that I'm saying are actually matching up with what scholars are saying. So it's proof to me that this coronavirus is a punishment from Allah. And I'm not a scholar, but a true scholar is one who not only has the knowledge and wisdom, but also the main thing is that they fear Allah. They fear Allah more than the average layman. So these brothers have said that this is a punishment from Allah, which confirms what I was saying. And the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, they don't want that getting out there because they're in bed with white supremacy. And once you start putting that out there and people start agreeing with that this is a punishment from Allah, they're going to pray to Allah to continue to punish them even more. You're going to see that as evil. And if you see them as evil, if you see the government as evil, then you might overthrow them and implement a rulership of justice. And we can't have that. So this is why also you see that they had their scholars pushing out, don't say it's a punishment from Allah. But also at the same time, they also had their scholars saying that, well, protesting is incorrect. It's not from the way of Islam and you should not be protesting. They're trying to use a ruling that applies to a true Islamic government. And truthfully, there aren't really any true Islamic governments in the world today, because the ruling is that if you're under a true Islamic government and they're ruling by the laws of Allah, the laws of the Quran and Sunnah, even if that ruler is a sinner, he may have his own shortcomings. It's not for you to overthrow him. You have to obey him. It's not for you to protest against him. Now, if he starts taking away from the law of Allah and starts implementing his own laws, then you have a right to protest and possibly, overthrow him if you can. So they're using that to say, well, any ruler, you can't protest against them. And they're pushing that out to the American people. And so you have people telling the American people, no, protesting is wrong and sinful. Why do they want to do that? Because, as I said, they're in bed with the white supremacists. But truthfully, protesting injustice, because I was listening to another young brother talking about how here in America, we don't have a Muslim ruler. So that law doesn't even apply to us, period. And if this president over here is allowing racism to go on, allowing white supremacy and enabling it, then we have a right by God to protest and fight against it as best we can. You can't tell us that we can't do that. It would actually be proper to protest. It would actually be good deeds to protest. So protesting is from Sunnah. Protesting is from the way of God. And it was an article that came out with Abu Khadija that I read, and he was basically saying that, the hadith of correcting things with the hand, tongue, and heart. The hadith talks about if you hate something, if you see something that you don't like and it's wrong, then try your best to change it with your hand. If you cannot, then change it with your tongue. That would be protesting. If you cannot, then at least hate it in your heart. He was trying to say, basically, this hadith means you can't protest unless the ruler says you can protest. See what they're doing? And then on the other part, when it comes to the tongue, you can't say anything against it unless the scholars say you can say something against it. So basically what he's saying at the end of the article was that the only thing you can do is hate it in your heart and basically let the oppression continue, because there's no other way. So what he's saying to the people is that white supremacy, we're just going to keep it continuing because we benefit from this. That's basically what he's saying. So this is the white supremacist version of Islam that I was talking about in previous broadcasts, that they want to push on American Muslims over here, especially the Negro, the black population of Muslims over here. They really want us to be quiet because we're the only ones who's going to stand up against white supremacy. They do not want that. And it's funny to me also, and this goes all hand in hand. This is what I'm starting to see now. Yeah, this all ties in together because now there's remember back on my older broadcast where I was talking about Zaytuna Institute and how their leader Hamza Useless was basically using white supremacist talking points and peddling them out to the members of this Zaytuna Institute. The whole black on black crime thing, the whole white people get killed more by the police thing, allegedly, the whole, well, if black people get themselves together, all of that stuff. Well, now there's a brother that was a part of Zaytuna Institute, Imam Zaid Shaker. He has, I don't know if he's left Zaytuna Institute, but he has now coming to America, and he's being a part of a group known as MANA, MANA. He has become pretty much the president of that group now, and this group has been around for a while. It does work pretty much in the black communities, and he's become the president. I find that very odd that you have Imam Hamza Useless peddling these things in his Zaytuna Institute. And remember, I talked about Imam Abdullah Hamid Ali, I think that's his name. He's another one who's a part of his institute peddling that stuff. And Imam Zaid Shaker, now he becomes the president of this MANA organization, which is in the black neighborhoods. He has a video out now. In one of his videos, he's peddling the same thing. We're talking about the protests going on. We're talking about the unjust white supremacy and racism that's going on, the police brutality and killing of black innocent men and women. And he's on video talking about how, well, white people get killed more by the police. He's on the video talking about black on black crime. No, that's not going to work, brother. That's not going to work. You're not going to come into the hoods of America. You're not going to come into the black neighborhoods of America. And this is why I believe that he was sent in by Hamza Useless, because let's not forget, Hamza Useless was also working with President Trump. So I believe he has sent Imam Zaid Shaker into the hoods and neighborhoods of black American Muslim America. And he's using that as a tool to lull the black Muslims of America to sleep, especially the youth, to keep them quiet and keep them being passive to white supremacy and not standing up and speaking out and fighting against it. This is what I think he has been sent in to become the president of this MANA organization for. So they can keep peddling this whole idea of undercover white supremacy into the Islamic minds of the people in America, into the minds of the Islamic people of America, so that it can continue. And what's funny is I finally got to go back to the masjid on Friday for Juma. And it felt good to be back in the masjid. We didn't get to go the whole Ramadan. I was just missing going to the mosque, going to the masjid. But the day I came back, the imam was talking about the protests that are going on in America. It's a hot topic right now, so he was talking about it himself. And he was doing the same thing. I'm listening to him, and he didn't say anything good about black people. What he said was that it's good that people are protesting. It's good that the Muslims are joining in the protest. There are videos out there of Muslims joining in the protest and praying and, raising their voices against white supremacy. He was saying all of that. Those things are good that's going on. But then he started going into talking down to black people. He didn't mention anything good about black people. But then he started talking about how black people, if they would just pull their pants up and stop being thugs and get some education, stop smoking the weed, then that would make white people respect us more. We wouldn't get killed by the police because we would be respected more. We could hold our heads up high because I have the same degrees you have. I have the same education you have. I keep myself upright in proper clothing like you do. That's that same butter biscuit, we our own worst enemy talk. You didn't say anything good about black people, but then you're putting us down in front of the whole crowd of the immigrant Muslims and white people who may have been in the congregation listening. And this video is going out online as well to the world. So that's not good. And the thing is, you're saying that if black people would just get themselves right, and I'm not disputing getting ourselves right. Black people in America, yes, we have to get ourselves right. We have to build an economic structure. We have to live upright. We have to stop the bastard baby making. We have to stop all of these negative things. But the way you're shaping it in your conversation and the way you're giving it to the people is wrong. Because what you're saying is if we do all these things, then we're going to be respected and white supremacy is going to stop. So basically what you're saying is it's our fault why we get killed by the police. That's what you're saying. This is the same thing Hamza Yusuf tried to say in one of his lectures, talking about how they don't have fathers in the home, and this is why he was basically saying the same thing. If you look at the black on black crime statistics, so he's basically saying the same thing. It's your fault why you get killed by the police. But when you try to say those things like that, that doesn't make sense. Because back when our ancestors were in Africa, you had many different types of nations. You had Muslim nations in Africa. You had Christian nations, Jewish nations, whatever. Nations that weren't even a part of those three monotheistic religions. You had different nations, and for the most part, the black people of Africa were living upright lives. They weren't bothering anybody. They were traveling around the globe, living righteously, treating people with fairness and justice. They were educating the whole world. They educated the whole world. People came to them to learn knowledge and wisdom and understanding. They went up into Europe and took them out of the dark ages. So they were the pinnacle of education. They were the pinnacle of uprightness and being just. But what happened? White supremacy still came into Africa and did us dirty and took us out of there and made us slaves. So the point you're making that if we become righteous and if we stop sagging our pants and stop doing drugs, then we'll be respected and white supremacy will somehow stop. No, that's not going to stop it. It's not even going to make them respect you. So you can't use that excuse. I don't want to hear that anymore coming out of the people's mouths. And don't just, and if you're going to talk about the bad, then you have to give some good. And that, like I said in that whole lecture, he didn't say anything good about black people. And I just feel that these are all things being pushed into the black Muslim community to drown out the warrior spirit of the Muslims. And at this time, we need the warrior spirit of the Muslims because we are the ones who are supposed to implement justice. We are to help to implement justice. You can't sit up here and say protesting is not from Islam when fighting in the way of Allah is a part of protesting. When you go out and battle, that is a part of protesting. When the Muslims back in the Prophet's time, they went to the Battle of Badr, they were fighting in jihad. That was a protest. That is a form of protesting. Because the pagans during that time, they had a whole bunch of their material. They took it from them when the Muslims were leaving and going to their own state that they built in Medina. And they said, bump this, we're not staying here in Mecca and being oppressed and being killed just because we believe in Allah. We're going to go build our own state in Medina. As they were leaving, they were like, nope, you got to keep your goods and money here. You can't take that with you. Nope, leave it all here. They were taking all their wealth from them. And they said, fine, that's cool with me. I'd rather be with the Muslims. I'll build it all over again when I get to Medina. I'm not tripping about that. So what happened was you had all these Muslims in Medina. They're living their lives. And the pagans, they were going along the trade route and they had all their material and they were walking past basically Medina with their materials, with the materials of the Muslims. Pretty much mocking them, pretty much laughing at them like, look at them, they ain't gonna do nothing. They didn't do nothing when they was here. They were so peaceful and nice. Once again, proving that all that peace stuff don't change nothing. So they were marching past Medina with all the materials in their caravan. And that's when Allah revealed to them that now it's time to fight. Go out there and meet them. That was protesting. And they won that battle and they got their materials back. Another example. When Umar al-Khattab became the caliph, the leader of the Muslims after the Prophet died, peace be upon him, he stood on the minbar and he asked the people, he said, I'm going to lead by the Quran and Sunnah. And he asked the people, what will you do if you see me starting to stray and not lead by the Quran and Sunnah? If you see me start to try to implement laws and rulings that are of not that aren't the Quran and Sunnah. A brother stood up and he said, we're going to correct you with this. And he pulled out his sword. And when he did that, Umar al-Khattab, he smiled and he made dua and he was happy. He said, yes, this is good because we have people who don't fear men, they fear Allah, and they are about the Quran and Sunnah. So that was another form of protest. He said, we're gonna kill you basically. If you're not gonna implement the Quran and Sunnah, we're gonna protest and take over, and then we're gonna implement Quran and Sunnah again. So again, we see protesting in the life of the Muslims. And this is why, speaking of Umar al-Khattab, this is why I disagree with Umar Johnson when he says that the Quran doesn't have the answers to white supremacy. It does. If you read the Quran, and I've heard that Umar Johnson was raised in Islam. I'm not how sure that is, but someone confirmed that or not. But I've heard that he was raised as a Muslim or in a Muslim household. But I disagree with Umar Johnson saying that the Quran doesn't have the answer, because it does. If you read the Quran tells you to gather weapons against your enemy, the ones you know and the ones you don't know. That's in the Quran. As self-defense, to have weapons at the ready just in case something happens and you need to defend yourselves. This would have helped the people of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Even if we go far back as in Africa, if our African descendants back in Africa, if we would have had all our weapons stocked up, because we were traveling all around the globe, we should have been stocking up weapons and having them ready. But the thing is, we were traveling around the globe before white supremacy was implemented. So we were just treating the people justly. We saw no reason to have all these stockpiles of weapons, and because we didn't really, have enemies like that. We had skirmishes and battles here and there, of course, but we didn't have enemies like that. We were traveling around the world, giving out knowledge, giving out money, and being upright people. So we didn't feel the need for that. But if we would have followed the Quran, we would have been ready for when those white supremacists came on them boats. Same thing with Tulsa, Oklahoma. If they had everything in that community except a gun store. They had everything except a stockpile of weapons, and the white supremacists easily came in there and massacred all of them. Even if they did have weapons and they were massacred, at least they could give a fighting chance and take some of them with them. So Allah tells you in the Quran to prepare yourselves just in case, because he says there are enemies you do know and there are enemies you don't know. And that sounds to me as a specific reference to these white supremacists, because nobody knew these white supremacists was coming. They just popped up. The Quran also tells us of the coming of white supremacy. See, this is what I'm saying. This is how I believe that the Quran does have the answers, because the Quran told us that the white supremacists are coming. Because the story of Juj and Majuj, Gog and Magog, is the story of the white supremacists coming, the white supremacist structure coming. Because as I said before, I believe that Gog and Magog represents white supremacy. Now these are real people as well, but even when you look at it from them being a people, the people of Gog and Magog are white people. They're from the lineage of, what is it, Japheth? One of the sons of, I think it was Noah. Yes, one of the sons of Noah. His lineage became the white races of the world. So even in the Quran, it tells you that in the last days, Gog and Magog will break through this barrier, which is behind the mountains, and Islamic scholars have confirmed that these mountains are the Caucasus Mountains in Europe. They will break through this mountain and spread out all across the globe and bring destruction and corruption. Who is that talking about? That's talking about the white supremacists and white supremacy. The Quran also tells us to fight against oppression. In many verses in the Quran, it tells us to fight against oppression. Now, how you choose to fight against oppression is up to you. As long as it's in line with what Allah wants you to do, then it's fine. So it even tells us to fight against oppression. The Quran tells us the answer to racism, which is that I made you all different colors so that you will know each other. You know, I'm from this tribe, I'm from this nation. And I've done this so that you can all work together to build a greater world, a more just world, so that there can be variety. Everybody don't have to look the same. This is the beauty of the creation of Allah. So, and the Quran also tells us that, to fight against oppression, that even when you think you are outnumbered, victory is at the hands of Allah, not necessarily your number or your might. So I could keep going about how the Quran gives us the answers to white supremacy. Even when we look at the lives of the Muslims during that time, we see that Bilal, the black Muslim, he used to be a slave and he killed his own slave master in battle. The Prophet was firmly against racism, as you would call it. Because during that time, one of the companions of the prophet, he got into an argument with Bilal, and he said to Bilal, "You son of a black mother." And Bilal went to the prophet and told him about it, and the prophet was extremely angry, and he said, "You still have ignorance in you. You're still a person of ignorance." And he turned away from him in anger. And that companion went to Bilal crying, and he told him, "I will put my face on the ground, step on my head, so that you can forgive me. Step on my head." And then Bilal said, I don't need to do all that. I just pray that Allah forgives you." And the brother was just crying because Bilal wouldn't step on his head. So the Quran, the Sunnah gives you the answers to what's going on. But, that's all I wanted to talk about today, people. I know I was kind of all over the place. It's just a lot going on. It's a lot to gather. I may have missed some things. If I have misspoken on some things, then may Allah forgive me. But it's just a lot going on, and it's hard to gather it all up and give it to you in a good summary. Because that's what I like to do. I like to summarize it and give you some Quranic examples as well. Give you examples from the Sunnah as well, and just talk about what's going on in the world. We see what's going on. It's a good thing, and let's keep it up. Because now we see that as I said, the whole world has joined us in protesting. All it took was for black people of America to stand up. And it seems like the whole world was waiting for us to do that. Once we stood up, they saw, okay, now it's time. And the whole world has stood up. They got people all across in Sweden and Australia. I think in Australia, the government said, y'all can't protest. And 50,000 of them still came out in the streets protesting to stand in unison with the black people of America. This is what happens when the black man and woman stands up in America. It's not time. This is what I want to say. The fact that these protests are going so well, and it's exposing a chink in the armor of white supremacy. What's going to happen now is white supremacy, as I said at the beginning about the celebs cooning it up, they're going to send out their minions to change the whole energy of these protests. So now what you're starting to see now going on is you got niggas in the streets crump dancing in front of police. You got them doing a Cupid shuffle. Man, what the hell is going on? Y'all niggas out there dancing in the streets. It's not time for that. It's not time to be buck dancing for massa. We have a good movement going on, good energy going on. The ball is rolling. We're supposed to turn this into a snowball effect and make that snowball even huger. And y'all out here dancing. It's not time for that. You got protesters out here kneeling in front of police and saying, "Come on, get down on your knee." And so now they have realized, okay, this is what we got to do to make these niggas get quiet. We're going to send the police out there. All of you guys just kneel down with them, okay? Send the sheriff out there. He'll kneel down with you niggas and, say you guys are right. So just so y'all can just go home. We can get back to killing you guys later, okay? That's what's going on now. You also have, they sent out their LGBT coons. And now they're trying to divert the energy away because now you have your LGBT coons coming out talking about, what about gay black people? We get harmed too. Dog, this is about white supremacy. This is about police brutality, where it's not about sexuality. Because at the end of the day, whether you're gay or not, you're still black. So us protesting is for you. But no, you've been sent out to divert the energy. And that's what you're seeing now. Or another thing you're going to start seeing is that it's going to become a blame the black man thing. What they're going to start doing, you may also see, is that they'll say, "Oh, everybody forgot about Breonna Taylor getting killed by the police. Black men really don't care about black women. They're just protesting out there because of George Floyd and all the other black men that got killed. They don't care about black women." That's what you're going to also see also. You're going to see the LGBT. You're going to see the feminism get involved into it. And as I said, feminism is just white supremacy in a skirt. So now what you're also seeing, I seen pictures of white women out there talking about some, well, I love black penis, excuse my language, I love black penis, so you're gonna hear me protest. It was a picture of a white woman out there holding up a black sex toy, a phallic black sex toy. It's all becoming a joke now. They're trying to divert the energy. We cannot allow this to happen. We have to stay laser focused on what we want and what we need for our people. So let's not let them divert. Remember, we have to control the narrative. Let's keep controlling the narrative, people. But that's all I wanted to say for today. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. This has been Black Muslim in America, Muslim and Black in America. I'm your host, Bilal Abdullah. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, peace and assalamu alaikum.